to 227428 Thika Branch, 0725 000 706 Meru Branch. Vera Beauty and Fashion College, a TVET approved institution.
On the next episode of Kona.
Ya muhimu kwanza ni kujua hali yako ya status ya HIV.
Break the door. Wait. Do not make that mistake.
Why me?
If this door collapses, the whole palace will be in ruins.
I've found the way to get out of here.
Love bila gloves haiwezi. Riang ni kujua.
Afya bora, maisha bora. Jipime, jiinue.
Hamjambo wa Kenya wenzangu. Mimi ni Mheshimiwa Mize. Ninalotaka kuambia ni kuwasihi ya kwamba corona iko. Na ili tupigane nayo na tuishinde. Ukikohoa, tafadhali kama una ile ya kujifunika ile tissue, weka mkono hapa. Kama ni chafya yako atyo na itabakia pale pale. Kama ni kukohoa yako koholea hapo. Na nakwambia tukizingatia sheria na tuitii, hii corona tutaishinda na nchi yetu tutarudi kama kawaida.
The jury has decided. The Kenya Film Commission is delighted to announce that the shortlisted 20 nominees for the third edition of My Kenya, My Story mobile phone film competition are out. The public voting process is now open through the Commission's website www.kenyafilmcommission.com. Voting kicks off from the 17th June to 26th June 2020. Vote and get to know who scoops the top prize of 200,000 Kenya shillings during the award ceremony slated for 30th June 2020. Kenya Film Commission. Film Kenya. Capture Africa.
It's an excellent ball. And the ball in for Iheanacho gives Leicester.
As Newcastle host holders Manchester City at 8:30 p.m.
So Maximan.
Lazzaro's in the middle. It's gone in off him, I think. It's 3-0 Newcastle. Mendy. Aguero short, and it's going to go in.
It is a double treat you can't afford to miss. Don't miss out.
Jumapili hii kwenye runinga ya KBC, ungana naye Askofu Michael Wanderi wa kanisa la Christian Foundation Fellowship Kiambu kuanzia saa 1 hadi saa 2 asubuhi.
Ningetaka nikwambie our Jehovah God, because the Bible says he is the same yesterday, today and forevermore. He is able to take you to a place of abundance. He is able to take you to Rehoboth in the name of Jesus Christ.
Kipindi ni neno la neema, ukiletewa naye Askofu Michael Wanderi wa kanisa la Christian Foundation Fellowship Kiambu. Usikose.
Even before coronavirus, the Higher Education Loans Board was struggling to fund the needy children in the country, access or enhance their university education. This was because of inadequate funding from the Exchequer, as well as non-repayment of loan from past students. And then coronavirus happened, which has disrupted normal lives, including school time. And so the question is, how has this virus made a complicated situation more dire? Joining us on Inside Government is the CEO of HELP, Charles Ringera. This There's going to be a discussion on how they have been impacted and what is going to be the way forward in funding needy cases in the country going forward. Thank you so very much indeed. It was a bad situation. How has Corona made it even worse?
Thank you, Brian. And let me say, first of all, I'm Jamboni, everybody who is joining us this evening, just to scale up and discuss issues in regard to student financing in these unprecedented times of coronavirus. And you're very right, O'Brien, when you say we're already in a hole, and then the hole was made worse in terms of student financing. But one of the key things, of course, as you're aware, is that the student left for home sometimes in March, and they have not been in school. What has happened since then is that various methods have been deployed in terms of learning, one of them being the online learning. And we have now about 40% of the students doing online learning. Some universities and colleges have been very successful. They have even done online exams. And we think that is the new normal and the future of education in this country. And what has now has thrown to us new challenges in terms of gadgets provision for them to be able to do the online learning. Of course, they are now using a new fuel called bundles, so for them to be able to attend classes. And those are some of the disruptors that we have seen in the market. But the board is thinking hard enough together with government, or now they can be able to support the students moving forward. And we hope that as we go out there to resonate more with Kenyans, the faculty itself, and also the students who are our main clients, then we'll have a conversation on how do we fund them moving forward in regard to post-COVID or living with COVID moving into the long future. Yes.
Sometimes in February, you had said that, almost 114,000 students, were likely to miss out on the funding from HELB because of financial constraints. And that was before, coronavirus hit our economy and schools were closed and businesses went down. So how bad is the situation now?
Out of the total budget expenditure of about 17.5 billion, the year that is ending in a few days' time, HELB was expecting to recover about 5.5 billion from past loanees, with the balance coming from Exchequer. When I look at the numbers that have come from Exchequer, we are now at about 8.5 from Exchequer. We're still looking forward to be able to receive another 2.8 billion between now and the end of the year. On loan recoveries, end of the financial year, which is about in a week's time. We still have something we are still owed with Exchequer, but we are promised that will be coming forth. But the biggest impact has been on loan recoveries, where we were expecting to get about 5.5 billion in terms of loan recoveries. And because of unemployment, which has just spiked up because of retrenchment that you have seen across, and of course, deployment status of the business, what has happened, or what has that meant, is that the 5.5 billion we were to recover has now been scaled down to about 4.2 billion. That is what we are seeing we'll be able to recover, which means we are off by about 1.2 billion. What does that mean? It means even allocating a student about 40,000, the 100,000 are actually there. You can see they will go without funding. Now, that doesn't, that's not even the main concern. The main concern for us is the after effect. When business starts resuming into normalcy, with how will it be back again to the same scale that it was previously? I doubt, because of this aspect of social distancing. You require more space in the offices. More people are now on online working, or they are working from home, or some of them have actually been retrenched. And we think between now and June next year, we have estimated we'll have a dent of about 1.7 billion in terms of recoveries. You must have seen the numbers from Exchequer, from the budget statement read by the minister 2 weeks ago. We've been allocated 16.8 billion. Out of that 16.8 billion, HELB was supposed to recover about 5.5 billion. In our own estimate, the best we'll be able to do is about 4 billion of that. So once again, I cannot see us being able to fund the student to the level they need to be funded. And O'Brien, what has happened in this organization, we have also become ambitious in terms of funding all students in higher education. So apart from the traditional student going for degree programs, we then expanded to TVET programs because that is a government program in terms of increasing skills so that they can be able to feed for themselves. And that brought a all new, about 125,000 new students in the TVET sector. And again, with a huge financial burden. This year, we are spending about 4.5 billion on the TVET students. Yes.
And I mean, with a funding haul of almost 7 billion Kenya shillings, I mean, and financial burden of more than 125,000 TVET students, this is definitely going to stretch you to the limit. And what exactly does this mean for students willing or angling a piece of the help pie to pursue their higher education?
It's a big challenge, O'Brien, and when we look at things moving forward, and yet, remember, as the people who are leading this conversation, as the people leading these institutions, the student doesn't want to know that. It is his right to be able to access higher education through financing by HELB. So what we have done as a board, we are completely thinking without the box anymore. And one of the areas that we are now trying to look at is the external resource mobilization envelope that we have been, leading before for the last 5 years. We have now been able to pick about 1.3 billion, from outside there. We want to scale up that in a different shape and manner to be able to talk to, you and I who are able to make it, and they can be able to support a student or two. So we are discussing with the counties, the constituencies, the development partners, and we are really grateful so far of what the development partners have been able to come through. We're also in discussion with our ministry so that we can be able to see whether part of the stimulus package that was announced by His Excellency the President, whether we could be able to get a pie out of that, and there are several ways we can be able to get a pie out of that. Remember also, with that stimulus package comes in the employment of healthcare workers. We have today funded about 35,000 nurses who have gone various schools, colleges, and we hope those are the ones who will be getting into employment. What does that mean? It means that I can actually start now recovering from them earlier than I had estimated to start recovering from them. Remember, teachers, the TSC has now been given about 2 billion shillings to recruit another 10,000 teachers. Now, what does that mean? It means that actually we can continue, they can help us in terms of covering the hole that I was actually estimating. If you look at 10,000 teachers and you say maybe about 50% of those ones have got a help loan, then you are saying if every teacher was giving you about 4,000 shillings per month, then you can see you are well on course to collect about 20 million from TSC or new money. Then we have the 1,000 intern teachers. Again, those intern teachers are coming with the with an opportunity for us to be able to, to start recovering our money earlier than we actually thought, because previously teachers were taking longer to be able to be in school. The other area that we are looking at opportunities is these aspects of online learning, and you must have online digital working, and you must have seen that even KRA on its side, they have actually prioritized the aspect of e-commerce, the people who are working, digitally, so that they can actually be able to start to pay something to Exchequer in regard to, their taxes. Moreover, if you look at this social distancing, because we don't know how the new norm in schools will look like, it looks to us like we might actually require more teachers than the 10,000. Because if a class which used to have one teacher, a class of 40, the new normal now says a class cannot be more than 10, which means they now require 4 teachers. So which means TSC has to scratch its head again and see actually do they require 10,000 or they require more than 10,000. Those are new opportunities we are actually seeing out of this post-COVID or living with COVID. Yes.
So going forward, I mean, in the not so distant future, or what I would call in the medium term, do you see HELP cutting down the number of beneficiaries of help programs?
I'm not sure. If anything, actually, we are now excited to be able to get into an expansion mode, and that's why I'm telling you.
And how do you do this? I mean, with constricted funding.
There's a new norm that we are looking at. For example, we have had discussions with a number of our development partners. Now we know that the way into the future is online learning. One of the key components of online learning is devices. So we are talking with development partners and, having a value conversation and asking, what does online learning mean for the student? They require bundles, they require infrastructure, they require gadgets. Is it possible for development partners, as part of their stimulus packages that they also, programming for this country, to have a conversation on how can they facilities, how can they be able to help us in terms of, devices? That means we will actually be expanding the kitty. US government, you must have seen that they have voted now about 5 billion shillings to be able to support this country in terms of, post-COVID. So those are the areas we are actually now playing so that we can see who cares about what is happening in this country, and can you be able to come, and help us out?
But of course, I mean, that can only be long-term thinking.
Correct.
Because, for sure that in this country, when it comes to policy, there are stages and, there's a whole bureaucratic process that they have to go through before, they are allowed to come into play. But, I mean, you are struggling with loanees paying, the dues to help. And you correctly put it, I mean, you are targeting about 5.5 billion shillings. You are talking about
4 billion.
4 billion shillings, which means that you'll be short with about 1.5 billion shillings.
Mm-hmm.
So, where does this leave you in terms of, having enough finances, to offer more students?
So there are several conversations, and the board is again meeting next week for us to be able to make the final approval. One of them, of course, has to go back to your mother. When you are tormented in town, you run back again to your mother. Yes. So one of the key things is that we want to run back again to the mother. I think is one of the key things that the board has decided to tell
the mother here being the Ministry of
government.
Education?
Yes, tell the government this is where we are, and these are the kind of interventions that we are thinking that they can be able to make. And of course, government will continue as part of the constitution of making sure that everybody accesses education in an equitable and a fair manner. Then we hope that we have a lifeline on that. And remember, I told you, out of the president stimulus package, we're also looking at what are some of the benefits we can be able to get out of that stimulus package. Then we also, just like I said, we're having a conversation with development partners as part of our external resource mobilization. Another key thing we're even toying up with is our average now per student is about 43,000 per year. Is it possible to tinker with that number and then be able to get more, through the net, so that even the amount of ugali which is there, we share it, all of us, so that nobody goes at least without a piece. Yeah.
So what discussions or what debates are you having with government in terms of, upscaling the allocation to help? And sometimes in November last year, you put up a paid advert, in newspapers, threatening to name and shame people who have defaulted on repaying their loans. I mean, that sounded like it was a desperate measure, telling people, hey, look here, it's going to get murky here. Are you still keen on doing these? And with coronavirus now here, with that, it means that the number is likely to be higher.
Globally, student loans is not a cup of tea, O'Brien. I mean, student loan we know brings down government, actually. If you look at the US, it's a major discussion they are now having on, targeted financing of students. And I don't think we are any different. But coming back to what you asked about, the publishing of names and images of people who have refused and are saying won't pay and can't pay. Today, we share data with a number of organizations who get data. KRA is one of them that we share data legally. There are people who are paying their loans through M-Pesa. So you can see somebody is moving quite huge chunks of money, whether at KRA level, whether at NHIF level, whether at the telco money level, and they are not willing to come and actually pay their debt on the other side. Those are the guys we are saying we will actually not go short of even pushing their images on the papers. And even that images of the papers, by the way, do you know how it would have helped us? We now know, out of our dead book of, difficult book of about 86,000 people, there are some people there who are dead. And help is not a priority for anybody to come and say, oh, by the way, this guy who you're still demanding money from, he has passed on. He passed on, I don't know how many years. But by virtue of, maybe if we put the image there, you can actually come and tell us, this person actually died. That way I can be able to go and claim that money, from the insurance. And that way is part of the process of actually loan recovery. And also it improves the portfolio. So that was the basis of, this publishing of names. But you see, the success story was quite huge. That time that we tried that mechanism, because he said the people will not come forward. I can tell you the success story was anywhere between 90 and 95%. 95%. Yes.
Their loan dates back to 1970s, 1980s. And as you're saying, some of them are dead already. Have you managed to pay these? And if yes, how does these non-performing loans, looking like?
We are trying, but it will take a lot of interventions. One of them that we are working with the National Treasury, the Pensions Department, because remember also Pensions Department is trying to clean up the pensioners, because some of them are actually, they are no longer existing. So we are working with Pensions Department. We are also working with the Registrar of Debts, so that we can be able to extract it. The problem is that the manual processes in some of those offices is becoming a real challenge. Working with our private debt collectors is also helping us, because when they go for background check and investigations of those people, they then return and say, this one, died 5 years ago. But we still have the 1970s in our books here, who have actually not bothered to pay, and they are living and they are earning, a decent living out there. Those are the ones we have been talking about publishing. Those are the ones my minister then, and Dr. Amina Mohammed was talking about, these guys, we can even use the police to be able to get, the law gives us the backing to be able to prosecute such people. And there are some actually who have refused to listen to us, and we have ended up to court. We are currently following up with about 7 cases in court, so that we can be able to recover state money. This running away with help money is like grabbing a government plot. It's the same. It's an asset of government. You have just picked it and you have refused to pay it, so the next person cannot not be able to enjoy, the facilities that you actually enjoy.
So 7 cases are in court out of how many possible cases?
We don't know how many will be there, because I can tell you the real handbook, you could say, is about 15,000 people.
15,000?
Yes.
So that's actually very, very small percentage, right?
But you see, the message is very clear and subtle. When you pursue it that way, it's very, very clear. And again, who knows? We don't even know.
So by pursuing the 7, are you seeking conviction? Are you seeking repayment? Or
yes, repayment of the money that was given by the state. Yes, as I said, this is an asset of government that you have actually taken there. We can see you're having a decent kind of income, and you have refused maybe, to pay. Yes.
We've even had a situation whereby, some legislators have said, I'm not going to pay my help loan. Education is a constitutional right. Have you seen probably maybe a spike in numbers of people who are also telling you the same?
So when you look at the legislators, of course, they will not be able to go far in terms of that, because at the end of the day, they're on a payroll. When the payroll of a parliament does not recover the money and remit to us, then we penalize parliament as a body corporate itself, which we do to any, whether private or public employer. So that could be a nice talk outside there, but in reality they don't do. In fact, one of them, who I will not name here, when I called him, I asked him, why are you telling people this until you have paid your loan? And the next day he's also calling me and say, one of my constituents actually require to be funded. Say, where will funding come from? Unless this fund removes, you cannot be able to fund it. So
in public, some of these legislators are saying we are not paying, can't pay, won't pay.
Yes.
But
I would want somebody to come and say, O'Brien has said he would not pay and he can't pay. Then I would tell him, but here is his certificate.
They already paid.
Yes. Or he has already paid. It's actually out of the. The question is that when that lion's share comes out of the entire budget, how can we optimally use it so that everybody, Wanjiko, Moral, Nafula, feels that the impact of what government is putting in education is actually affecting my household, directly, and therefore they can be able to support their government in terms of having a conversation on When you take a help, what do you do with it? The need for you to be able to repay back, because we require that money to be channeled to another student.
Charles, thank you so much. Charles Wingera is the CEO of Higher Education Loans Board, joining us on Inside Government to explain to us how the board has been impacted by coronavirus. And you have heard it from him. My name is O'Brien Kimani. This has been Inside Government. Thank you for your time. Bye for now.
As Newcastle host holders, Manchester City at